and welcome to Four Wheels Good, the programme which puts you in the driving seat of the motoring world and hurtles you round its ever-changing circuit. On the track today we have Ian Royle, who pays a final visit to the National Motorhome and Tourer Show in Peterborough and encounters some of the more unusual mobile homes available. Now, if you're in the market for a second-hand car, then Nicky Fox will be teaching you how not to go about buying it. And John Ever-Ready Spanners Wright will be charming us into the studio garage for a peep under his bonnet in Inside Motors. But first, Howard Stableford has been taking a tour around the Avensis, Toyota's replacement for the Carina. The Carina has been around now for over 25 years and Toyota expect that the Avensis will challenge the leaders in its class like the Carina never could.
The name of the company that makes this car is almost a palindrome for a toy yacht. Turn it the other way round and you've got a Toyota.
We'll start with the good news. This is the top of the range CDX 2-litre Estate. Now normally Estates, I think, are really ugly. They're sort of saloons with a box tacked on the back. But this one is gorgeous in comparison to most of its rivals, which is a surprise because it's been designed by a Toyota Pan-European committee. Now normally, as we know, committees give us camels, but not in this case. Look at this. Beautifully sculpted bonnet here, smoking windows, and a backside that's positively pert, with these beautiful wrap-round large lamps that make the estate version of the Avensis look like it was properly designed from scratch. Very attractive. Full marks so far. Unfortunately, exhausted by their excellent efforts outside, this talented design team obviously took a break whilst Steve Boring Davis designed the interior. Look at this, acres of dark grey plastic, last seen on John Major's spitting image puppet, create an atmosphere with all the appeal of a wet winter's sky over Skegness. And look, hard grey leather seats add to the atmosphere of despondence, and those sassy smoking windows on the outside just add to the gloom on the inside. However, I believe that other interior colours are available.
The Avensis is now amongst us so that the boring old Carina E no longer needs to be. It's being phased out this year. Meanwhile, Toyota have high hopes indeed for their new Rose. It's aimed at the upper medium sector of the market, wants to be a big player on the fleet buyers list, and is supposed to appeal strongly to young families as well. The engines have been reworked to be more responsive than the Carina E. They vary from a 1.6 litre 16-valve lean burn through a 1.8 version to 2 litres. There's also a 2-litre turbo diesel engine with electronic fuel injection, drive-by-wire throttle and an intercooler. I wish they'd sent me that one to try. Acceleration has been improved at lower engine speeds in the Avensis, and there's roughly 3% better fuel efficiency over all of the 4 new models. Meanwhile, back in the driver's seat, it's a perfectly pleasant and easy car to drive. The seats are very comfortable, they wrap round you extremely snugly, and unlike in a lot of cars, the headrests actually come forward and rest your head. And one thing I particularly like is the view through the large rear quarter windows. Now, the cheapest version of the Avensis is the S grade, but even that comes pretty loaded with things like powered front windows and mirrors, adjustable steering column remote, central locking and an immobiliser. Now, this is the top of the range, as I said earlier, so this one comes with a rather nice electric sunroof. It also has wood trim that clashes horribly with all the grey plastic. An extremely attractive CD, tape and radio, along with a truly awful audio remote control. I mean, look at this little stubby thing down here. You need the dexterity of a magician to fumble your way around here to find anything useful. And then why bother, because the remote controls are so handily situated near the actual controls. You know me, I like a gadget, but only if they're actually useful. In the bad old days, it was how fast a car could go and how quickly it could get you there that sold cars. Today, it's how many mod cons come as standard, and of course, how safe is my family going to be? Well, the Avensis does pretty well in these departments. Toyota claims that this has the best safety features in its class. Driver and passenger airbags, of course. Front seat side airbags are standard too. What's more, the front airbags are larger than in the Carina. Anti-lock brakes are standard, better seatbelt mechanisms, and reinforced rear seat backs to stop flying luggage becoming a pain in the back. All good stuff.
Talking of luggage, I've decided to stop here to show you how flexible things are in the back. Oh, and by the way, these luggage rails are standard on the CDX. For a start, there's a deceptively large amount of space in the back here, and that's because it's opened out at the sides behind the rear wheel arches to give extra width. There are clasps in here to batten your luggage down, and this is rather neat too. Simple cover to hide your valuables that clips in the back. And that's also very easy to remove. A couple of levers there, and the whole thing, very light, just lifts out. And that's also true of this fabric luggage guard here, that simply unclasps too. Meanwhile, in the back seats, lots of space, good leg room down here because the front seats have been sculpted out to give you extra room for your knees, and there's great flexibility here too. Basically, these seats can be very simply pushed down. Oh, hello. And then the back seat just pops forward like that, and the headrest comes out. Extra flexibility, extra length there, and the same on the other side. But before I show you that, there's a nice piece of storage space there. Put your drinks, a little few nibbles there. Otherwise, this seat does just the same. Clips, forward it goes. You take the backrest off, and then you've got acres of space. Rather clever.
Overall, I like the design of this estate car, but it's not going to light any fires in the motoring world. It's a good machine, but its performance is as dull as the interior planes of plastic. The Avensis 2-litre CDX Estate does 0 to 60 in about 10 seconds, has a top speed of 125 miles an hour and an average fuel consumption of 33 mpg, and it costs just under £20,000. The bottom of the range S-grade starts at £14,000. Now, Toyota compares prices and specs with rivals like the Vectra, the Mondeo and the Peugeot 406, and the Avensis comes out on top quite easily. However, at the time I was road testing, the Avensis was in a higher insurance class than the others because Toyota hadn't got round to sending the assessors a car to assess. Now that's one drawback I'm sure they'll remedy straight away.
Howard Stableford there, familiarising himself with the replacement for the Carina, the Avensis. Well, it's over now to Ian Royle for one last look at the National Motorhome and Tourer Show. This week, Ian encounters the stranger side of the world of mobile homes.
Now, owning a motor caravan, you can, of course, take quite literally anything with you. The kitchen sink, there's a fridge, a toilet and a shower. But how about this? A little car, a Suzuki Cappuccino, in the back of a motorhome. Astonishing. So that problem in the evening, you want to go out to eat, to have something at the local restaurant, do you take the whole motorhome? No, you don't. You take your little Suzuki Cappuccino in the back. Tremendous. Now, how about this for a dinky little motorhome? Just sleeps the two people, but it's based on a Citroën Berlingo. With me, Peter Vaughan, who's a freelance motoring journalist. Peter, what really attracted you to motorhomes?
The ability to go anywhere whenever I felt like it. It can be the depths of winter and somewhere warm and sunny appeals, or it can be the middle of summer and perhaps you go wherever you feel like. You don't have to plan in advance, you just throw a few things in the van, a bit of fresh food. The rest is probably already in there and off you go.
Now, to us, perhaps to the uninitiated, we might see motorhomes as being a bit bulky and a bit slow, a bit sluggish on the road, difficult to set up. What would you say to that?
I think that's a commonly held misconception, and it comes from there being some truth in that in the past. Today's modern motorhome, based on the modern array of commercial vehicles with things such as 2.5 litre turbo diesel engines, are anything but slow. I would accept your criticism of them being bulky. Yes, they are, but the manufacturers do their best to make them as aerodynamic and as attractive as possible.
Everyone's got their special reasons for buying a motorhome. For Malcolm and Susan Pell, it was the freedom to escape without breaking the bank.
We like walking and mountaineering and things, and it was a good opportunity to go and see the country. And if you're on a limited budget to start with, you can't really afford large hotels and things like that, can you?
No, so about 18 years ago, he came home with a £50 high-top Transit, Ford Transit, which had been converted by students to go to France in for 6 months. And you paid 50 quid for this pile of old junk, didn't you?
It wasn't old junk. We only got rid of it 2.5 years ago, and it was still going then. And when I retired, I got a nice sort of lump sum, and we thought, do we invest it, or do we get rid of the old banger we got and get a good one? And we agonised over it and thought, well, I'll probably spend the rest of my life sitting in an armchair thinking, well, if I had, then I'll do it.
But buying one is a big decision, and a good one doesn't come cheaply. Thankfully, there's the Motor Caravan Information Service to help you out.
Motor Caravan Information Service initially was a generic promotional campaign, and still is, to get the joys of owning a motorhome to the public. Not a specific manufacturer, just generically. But we're also a fount of all kinds of stupid information now. Not stupid, but all kinds of information. So anybody who wants to know anything about motorhomes, motor caravanning, we hopefully can provide it for them. We've got brochures, we've got telephone numbers. We're there at the end of a telephone to help, or a fax or an email, to help people. And that's what we do, just help people.
Well, hopefully we've managed to convince you in the past few weeks about the pleasures of owning a motorhome. Our best advice on them seems to be go out and hire one. Take one out for a week, a couple of weeks, even a month if you can afford it and if you have the time to do it. Try it out, see how you get on with it. There are motorhomes in all shapes and sizes, plenty to choose from, and bear in mind they're not cheap either. So that's just about it from the Motor Caravan and Touring Show here in Peterborough.
That was Ian Royle with the last of 4 reports from Peterborough. But never fear, because we'll keep you posted on the world of motorhomes in future programmes. That's it for part 1. Join us after the break when Nicky Fox will be showing us how not to buy a car. And John Wright will have his beady eyes on the internals of engines and inside motors. See you then. Welcome back to the Motors programme, which keeps its ear to the ground of the motoring world 4 wheels good. In a short while, we'll be over at the studio garage to spend some time with the motor mender himself, John Wright. But first, Nicky Fox has been finding out about the pitfalls of buying a second-hand car.
1 in 3 of the second-hand cars we buy is dodgy. Whether dodgy mileage, dodgy paperwork, dodgy repairs, or one of many other traps for the unwary, most can be avoided by following a few simple rules. Forget to follow them, and you may find out the hard way how not to buy a car.
It was 10 years old, I paid over the odds. Every time I got into it, I felt like crying. And every time I got into it towards the end, when it was costing me over £100 a month in just maintenance alone, I felt like getting a can of petrol, pouring it over the top of the car and setting light to it. I felt that bad about it.
Do your homework. It's worth investing a few quid in the second-hand listings. Then decide how much you want to spend, what model you want and how old it's going to be, and stick to that decision. An impulse buy is okay for a bar of chocolate, but after you're home, a car's likely to be the biggest investment you make.
I had a fixed amount of money and I knew I couldn't go over that, but I saw the car and I really liked it, so I did go over my money. It was too expensive for me, I couldn't really afford it.
Check everything in the ad. Is that a private number or is it a cell phone, which might just indicate a fly-by-night vendor? Is the ad marked with a T, which means trader in a press ad? Take someone along who knows about cars and is happy to show off a bit. And if you're a woman, take someone along anyway, whether you know all about cars or not.
I bought a sports car once, only had it a couple of weeks, and the engine blew. And then there's various other problems went wrong with it, and I eventually found out it was an insurance write-off rebuild. Very disappointing. Cost me a lot of money.
If you're meeting the vendor in a street outside a house, do they actually live there so you can trace them if something goes wrong? Ask them to go inside and get the paperwork or fetch you a glass of water.
We bought a second-hand car and eventually found out the hatchback never quite fitted properly. It's one of those things that leaves a sort of a nasty taste in your mouth, not being pointed out at the time. We put up with it and eventually sold it, but never totally pleased with the car because of that.
Have you time to check on the HP status, the insurance status? If it's a repaired crash, do you still want it?
I found out after I bought it that it had actually been involved in an accident, it being sprayed a different colour. I've had to buy 2 new front wings for it, so it's ended up quite a lot more expensive than I can afford, really.
Now, will he take a cheque or does he insist on cash? The few days it takes a cheque to clear will give you time to check out both the car and its paperwork.
The car looked so good that we thought, great, this is the one we want. So we didn't really bother checking the paperwork or anything. Don't know where the MOT came from or anything, just pleased to have it.
Don't rush into a purchase because it looks as though the vendor needs the money, or because you don't want to be any more trouble, or even because you're short of time to look at cars.
I'd only been driving it for about 2 or 3 hours when I realised it wanted to turn right a lot. Going into left-hand bends, you had to fight the steering wheel.
Pick your time and don't look at a car in the dark. Also, rain will mask body flaws and put pressure on you to make up your mind more quickly than you should. And finally, remember, you can always walk away from a car. There are lots and lots and lots of them out there to choose from, and one of them just has to have your name on it.
Let's hope you take heed of Nicky's warning. There are plenty of people out there who are perfectly prepared to fleece you for every penny. Now, John Wright is a man who knows what's inside motors, so it's no surprise to find the man with the moustache doing it his way along the highways and byways under the bonnet of Inside Motors.
Welcome back to Inside Motors. Last time you saw us we were doing some cleaning. Now it's time to do the good bit, the assembly. These are the parts that make up the valve trim. The rockers and the tappets, and they fit in with these posts. This is the old rocker shaft that ran between the posts. As you can see, it's very, very worn. Right, this is a new one we're going to fit in here. Right, as you can see, there are no deep grooves in it like there are in this. The major reason that we're changing it is A, we can get better settings on the tappets, but also it's to maintain oil pressure. And the one thing that A-series engines like is a constant oil pressure. As you remember, we changed the cam bearings, we changed the main bearings, and we're going to change the big end bearings. It's all to maintain oil pressure. That's the key to success with A-series engines. That's why we're changing all these bits. I think it's about time we did some assembly now. Let's get on with it. We've pre-assembled the rockers, ready to get everything right on the valve train and the tappets. First thing we've got to do is make sure that we get things lined up. I'll show you why on this head. Bring the head in. It's a little oil hole that feeds the rocker shaft, and that's located here. The oil that passes up that hole feeds into that little hole on the rocker shaft, and that's got to fit that way around. This post, the one with the hole in the top, is the one that locates the rocker shaft, and that slides on like that. And this little thing, the thing that locates it, and that screws in the top. It's firmly attached. Now, tighten that up later. What we know now is that we've got things the right way round. Now we just follow that and assemble the rockers on the shaft. Pop that back down there, get rid of the head. We'll stick this in the vise. Just tighten that screw up first. This is the way we do the assembly. Stick a bit of oil on it, and then you take one tappet followed by a spring. Followed by another tappet, followed by a post. Which is followed by another tappet, another spring, another tappet, another post, and finally another tappet. Move them all down the shaft. There's a little spring, a washer, and it's all held in by a little pin. Right, we've finished assembling the rocker gear, and now it's time to recut the valve seats. Right, the valve seats are located in the head. Right, valve seats are located in the head there, and they're what the valves actually sit on. So it's obviously quite essential that we get a gas tight seal. So what we're going to do is recut them. The valve cutting gears all in this little box, nice handy carrying case. What this kit consists of is a spindle that you slot these cutting heads on, and the spindle locates centrally down the valve stem, and then you can cut the valve seats.
We'll see John getting up to all sorts of motoring magic very soon. Well, next week's show will be slightly different to the norm. We'll be taking a tour around some of the best bits and finest moments which have appeared on Four Wheels Good since it started. So join us for the party then.